Hey, good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the Riff Circle, where we talk all things music. Listen, we're going to dive in today to the Led Zeppelin catalog. Anytime you have an excuse to dive into Led Zeppelin, it's a good day. And we're going to go through and we're going to pick the best song off each album. For context, Led Zeppelin is my favorite band of all time. They have been forever. So I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan. This was a ton of fun to do. Some of these songs are just there's two or three, four. The track lists on these albums are ridiculously crowded because they're just that good. You already know how good Led Zeppelin is. I don't need to gush about them. But being able to choose one was hard to do. This was fun to do because usually you do the albums, you do a discography ranking, you're like, okay, is Zeppelin II better than one? This was a different lens. You get to choose which songs, the songs within the albums are fighting, which was cool. And what we did with this one, we chose the best song, and then I'm going to add an honorable mention to each one, just because some of them are obvious, right? And you just can't argue with one or two of these. So the honorable mention at least gets some of the songs that don't see the light of day, get talked about a little bit more when they're overshadowed. But a lot of fun with this one. If you like this sort of thing, we're a brand new channel. If you like this sort of thing, like the video so that, so we know what you folks want to see. If we get 15 likes on the video, which is that's how new we are, a tiny amount, I'm going to go ahead and do a few others like this, but with Rush, the band Yes, and the Doors. We'll do a few of these if folks like this sort of content. And subscribe if you want to see those videos, because I'll do them pretty soon. Okay, folks, so without further ado, we're going to jump into the list. Led Zeppelin I. January 1969. Can you imagine this is your debut? You're a band, you've gotten together, you're feeling each other out, you've done a few shows, then you come out with this? This is your debut? Insane. Insane. My number one pick for this is Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. Okay? To me, that's a perfect Led Zeppelin song. It's my favorite track on the list. I think it's a top 5 Led Zeppelin song, which is insane to say with how crowded that is. But it might be a controversial pick because I know a lot of folks they got a little bit involved with the writing credit on this one, which you'll see a little bit of a theme here with some of this, but I'm going to set the record straight. And one of the things we like to do here at the Riff Circle is we don't like to just regurgitate other content you see. My goal is to make sure that you folks leave having learned something. I want to earn your like, and I think we're going to earn it with this here. A little bit of background on this track, and then we're going to jump to Zeppelin II. But I got to talk about this one for a second. Okay, so going back 10, this comes out in 1969. Going back 10 years, okay, Anne Breeden writes the original version circa 1959, so 10 years prior, while she's a student at Berkeley, California. Okay, then her friend Janet Smith comes along, hears Anne play it on a local radio show, and says, "Wow, great song. I'd like to make a few changes to that." So Janet Smith rearranges the song a little bit. For example, replaces the banjo with a guitar and does a few other things, and then plays her version to Joan Baez at a jam session in 1962. Joan Baez really likes the track and says, "You know what? I want to play this live, some of my shows." So she starts playing it live. Joan Baez has an in-concert album come out in late 1962, which has the track on it. This is where things go sideways. That album, the in-concert Joan Baez album, does not credit Anne Breeden as the original songwriter. It doesn't give any credit. It's just credited as Joan Baez. Okay. Then you have Janet Smith again, who tracks down Breeden in early 1963 and says, "Listen, go copyright this song and then notify Baez's record label." So Breeden does that, talks to Baez's record label, and they begin to pay her royalties. However, they did not change the writing credit on the Baez album. So the Baez album's, the in-concert album, still getting pressed, and the writing credit doesn't change. It's still credited as Joan Baez's song. So other versions then come out. So the Association does one in 1965. Quicksilver Messenger Service does theirs in 1968. Then Page brings the track, Joan Baez's track, to Plant for their first meeting in 1968. Says, "Other folks are doing covers of this. It's a great track. I think we can outdo everyone. I think we set the tone. We cover this one. It's a brilliant blues track. Let's do it." Okay, so they do. Jimmy Page credits the track on Zeppelin I, the album, as, quote, "traditional arrangement by Jimmy Page." Okay, so right there he's saying, listen, I didn't write this whole thing, but I arranged it. This is my version of this track. And part of that is they I'm assuming they didn't know the history of the song. Okay, you have multiple people covering it. You got to remember there's no internet at the time, so you can't just look things up very easily. And it was just a student who wrote this song, in the late 50s. It's tough to kind of nail down, and I think Jimmy Page knew that and was like, I don't know who wrote this song, but it wasn't me, but the arrangement's mine. So that's how he credits it. At some point in the mid 1980s, Janet Smith, who's a busy bee during all this, hears the Zeppelin song for the first time, gets in touch with Breeden and says, listen, I'll talk to Page on your behalf. Breeden says, okay. She reaches out to Page. Page gets notified and then says, okay, fair enough. Listen, we'll share the writing credit. It'll be Breeden, Page, Plant going forward from the mid 80s. Breeden agrees. Then Led Zeppelin starts paying her back royalties. Okay, so sets the record straight. Information wasn't perfect back then. And they made up for it. I'm sure she got paid well, and Zeppelin did the track. So, the original version and the Zeppelin version sound nothing alike. The arrangement is definitely original. I think it's one of the best songs. And the cover scene in early 60s London was very alive then. It's just kind of what that culture did at the time. Everyone was covering everyone else's stuff. A lot of bands were just cover bands. And so it wasn't this big thing. People nowadays take it out of context and they're stealing music. They've stole this. That's not the case. Not the case at all. Okay. Honorable mention. Again, we're going to do an honorable mention for each album. Just there's too much here to go through. Honorable mention is Dazed and Confused. On any given day, you could pick Dazed and Confused over Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You and be totally justifiable. Dazed and Confused, just a menacing track. Just a dark, broody track. I love it. I love what they do with it live. One other note about Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. I think my justification for that one, and same with Dazed and Confused, is those two tracks are Led Zeppelin at each member's best, right? So on Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, you have Robert Plant just selling you on this emotional vocal performance like no other. He when you listen to that, you're like, this dude's about to break some hearts, and he did over his career. And he knows how to deliver that. And you have Page just going wild on the guitar. The licks on that are just perfect. And then you have Bonham and John Paul Jones doing what they do best, knowing when to support and knowing when to be in the front with the other two. They're the best in the business at it, at a very crowded, talented band that's not easy to do. Look at Rush. They do it perfectly too. And at the time, I'm reading the Led Zeppelin biography. At the time, when Zeppelin I came out, the critics were pounding them over just being, this band is too loud, too bombastic. They're just over the top. And it's like, I would point to that track and say, no, we have brilliant dynamics. We can be very quiet and then know when to be loud, right? That's what that track does best. It's smoky when it wants to be, and then it brings a noise when you're feeling it and when it's emotional. It's not just this wall of sound. So Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. Again, a little lengthy history there, but I felt like I had to do it. And if you learn something, think about that like. So we're going to go on Zeppelin II, okay? Released the same year, which is just, it's insane to think that this band you're a new band and you put out these two albums in a year. Absolutely crazy. I went back and forth on these two for a while. I think, looking at the track list, they've just got some absolute ridiculous tracks on this album. But I waffled back and forth between two, and I think you can pick either one. If you asked me to do this list tomorrow, I'd probably pick the other one. A week from now, I'd change it again. But for right now, my personal pick, best song on Zeppelin II, Bring It On Home. Another one that they had some drama to it. So it's a Willie Dixon track, okay? And what they did, so Willie Dixon's record label, unbeknownst to Willie Dixon, reaches out and says, hey, we're going to hit you guys with some fees because you're using a lot of Willie Dixon on this track, and you didn't get our permission. Page responds and says, of course, we're paying homage to him. That's the whole point. He's one of our heroes. So the intro and the outro to Bring It On Home is an homage to Willie Dixon. And again, this is not Willie Dixon saying, hey, you owe me. This is the greedy record label trying to stick their nose into it. So they end up having to pay. But, you know, it was not to rip off. It was because this band, they loved these old, you know, the American blues players that came before them. They just thought they were the gods, and they were. And they thought, why not pay homage? Of course, they get nicked for it. But Bring It On Home for me is just another perfect track, especially when they do it live. I love when they do kind of the sparring between, you know, when the instrumentals kind of spar with each other. You have, you know, John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page kind of doing their back and forth. And you have Jimmy Page doing it with John Bonham, and then Plants on the harmonica. It's just fun. It's just a jammy, bluesy track with just a big wall to finish it. It's just perfect. The honorable mention, again, another Willie Dixon, is Whole Lotta Love. And again, I went back and forth because another monster track with very similar aspects to it. Just a mammoth blues track, especially when they do it live. You could pick either one for this album. But I'm going with Bring It On Home. Honorable mention, Whole Lotta Love. Just two killer tracks. Zeppelin III, where they start to experiment a little bit more folky, a little less hard blues. They still have that in there, of course, but just a little bit different from 1 and 2, which is great. They're showing how they can, you know, have their variability in there. Their range is starting to show a little bit. For me, this one is very similar to Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. I'm going to pick Since I've Been Loving You as what I think is the best track off Zeppelin III. Again, it's that smoky, broody, sultry, low when it needs to be low, Plants selling you on the emotion, and then it got the guitar licks that don't stop. It's got these big solos. I mean, it's just a monster track. Almost recorded entirely live, which I think is very cool. But they were in a very small room, and apparently it was a nightmare to record. You know, Bonham, he had a preferred drum pedal on this track, the Ludwig Speed King 201, which if you listen to the original pressing, you listen very closely, you can hear it squeaking. And it was dubbed the Squeak King after that. And you have John Paul Jones playing the Hammond organ, and he's playing the bass with the pedals with his feet. So very cool. I'm sure for them it was a nightmare. If you ask the engineer and the producers, I'm sure they didn't like recording that one. But as a fan, I love that sort of thing. I love the rawness of the track, which comes through. I think if you're going to pick anyone to do live, that was the one to do. The one that's got the most emotion you want to just get. So for me, it's Since I've Been Loving You. Honorable mention, Immigrant Song for sure. I mean, it's just a killer opener. It's just a wall of sound of just bringing it to your face as an album opener. You know, just under 2.5 minutes. For me, I get more out of Since I've Been Loving You. It's just my style of song I like. But you can make a case for An Immigrant Song as your style, and you'd be totally right. Tangerine, another killer track on that, and Out on the Tiles. I mean, this catalog doesn't quit. Speaking of doesn't quit, Zeppelin IV, 1971. Easily the most crowded track list of the whole catalog, I think. I mean, when you look at this track list, okay, Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Battle of Evermore, Stairway to Heaven, Misty Mountain Hop, Four Sticks, Going to California When the Levee Breaks. I mean, give me a break. Where do you even begin? To me, it's a no-brainer. You could pick any song and make an argument and you'd be okay, except for one. It's a boring pick, but Stairway to Heaven is the greatest rock and roll song ever written, in my opinion. Okay, don't be overly sensitive about that in the comments. I know everyone's got their own favorite. You can make a case for Comfortably Numb, Light My Fire. For me, it's Stairway to Heaven. I think it hits. It's just the greatest song of all time. Other than that, you know, when you're looking at the list, Black Dog, Battle of Evermore, Going to California, killer track. I mean, these are insane tracks. My honorable mention, though, what I would put as number 2, and this is why I did the honorable mention for this list, because Stairway to Heaven was a gimme. I'm like, but When the Levee Breaks is so good. It's so good. It's one of the best songs of all time. And so for me, honorable mention, When the Levee Breaks. And then after that, I mean, imagine you make an album that's so good that Black Dog, one of the best Led Zeppelin songs of all time, one of the best rock and roll songs of all time, is your number 3. Show me another band. This, you could count on one hand how many bands can do that or say that. Zeppelin IV, absolutely obscene. Stairway to Heaven, I think, is the best track. Kind of a gimme, but When the Levee Breaks, my honorable mention. Houses of the Holy, 1973. Oh man, the hits don't stop. Again, they're showing some of their range on this one. They have songs like Dire Maker, Dancing Days, The Rain Song, The Ocean, No Quarter. Killer tracks. For me, best song off of Houses of the Holy, it's No Quarter. Up to this point, there's really nothing like this track in the Zeppelin catalog. Zeppelin IV, they had Battle of Evermore, which is cool. I really like the versatility they brought to the table with that track, and it's one of my favorites on that whole album. Like that, they're showing the versatility with No Quarter. This haunting, beautiful, menacing track. It's just, and it became one of their staples during their live shows. Okay, absolutely wild version, Madison Square Garden in 1973. Well, the year the album came out, John Paul Jones going absolutely nuts on the keyboards. Some of the shows on the 75 tour, John Paul Jones is doing 20 to 30 minute extended solos. You can go check those out. I think there's some bootlegs out there that you can hear him just going nuts on that. I mean, No Quarter, there's just really nothing like this in the rest of the catalog. I mean, maybe 10 years gone, but I don't know. No Quarter is just phenomenal. Honorable mention, you could choose a few from here. The Ocean is really good, but it's not the one I went with. I went from Over the Hills and Far Away. To me, that's just like it is Led Zeppelin, Over the Hills and Far Away. It has every aspect that makes them perfect. It's got the builds, and it's got the intro. It's got Bonham doing all sorts of little things, especially in the beginning. It's just, and it just lands home too when it finishes. And of course, the live versions they did with that are just absolutely nuts. Just Over the Hills and Far Away. I mean, it's a phenomenal track. But for me, House of the Holy, it's No Quarter. My favorite track on that, and I think they're best. 1975, Physical Graffiti. To me, personally, this one is one of those like Zeppelin IV. It can't really be disputed. It's Kashmir. Come on. One of the greatest Led Zeppelin tracks of all time. Like I said, this and Stairway to Heaven are the only easy choices, I think. Started writing the track in 73. Again, the album came out in 75. John Paul Jones gets snubbed on the writing credit because he was late to the recording studio. Zeppelin showing him some tough love on that. So it's the writing credit's just Bonham Page Plant, just because he was late. So I don't know. I don't know all the history on that. I'm sure there's some history. If you know it, put it in the comments. But Kashmir, they're using their kind of that, Northern African kind of Middle Eastern influences on this. They visited those regions all the time. You can hear it throughout this track. Nothing's like this track. It's a phenomenal, lengthy, kind of a prog epic, really. It's just heavy too. And it's one of the few tracks where Page uses Delantrico guitar rather than his typical Gibson Les Paul or Fender Stratocaster. So Dan Electrico, very cool to kind of hear him do something different with that. So yeah, and then my honorable mention for this one, there's a lot of good ones on Physical Graffiti, but for me, it's going to be 10 Years Gone. I just love the track. It's always just had a special spot with me. Every time I hear it, I just love it. You could make a case for a lot of these. In My Time of Dying, Houses of the Holy, Down by the Seaside. I mean, there's a ton, but for me, it's 10 Years Gone. I think when Zeppelin can go low and then bring you in emotionally, sometimes that's when they're at their best. An underrated album from them, Presence, 1976. I think this is one of their most underrated albums. I think it's a killer album. For me, best track off the album, it's the opener, Achilles' Last Stand. 10.5 minutes long. And it's 10.5 minutes of just like in your face, killer musicianship. I mean, it's just phenomenal. Bonham is doing God's work on this track, and Plant's vocals are insane. The name and all that, it's kind of good, kind of that Greek mythology to it, but it's actually a song about tax evasion. So they had their inspiration of this when they were traveling in Morocco in June of '75. And obviously that can be heard in the opening track of Page's Moroccan influenced solo guitar arpeggios, and so what they're doing in this track lyrically, it was an April morning when they told us we should go. Zeppelin had a team to help them limit the amount they pay in taxes, and part of that is how much time you live in England. And so their team would say, hey, listen, you guys got to leave, change residencies, go off for a while, go work somewhere else, because they're going to hit you with taxes if you don't. And that's what happened with this. And so it was an April morning when they told us we should go. I turned to you, you smiled at me. How could we say no? So imagine you're Led Zeppelin, you're famous, you got a ton of money. Your tax guys say, hey, listen, time for you to head out, because if not, you're going to owe a lot more. And you go, let's go to Morocco. Sounds pretty sick. Go to Morocco, and that's what this song's based off of. It's where the inspiration comes from. But the Greek mythology portion to it's also very cool. Lot of things happening on this track from a studio perspective. Overdubbed guitars, slide guitar, tempo changes, time changes. It's one of the most complex Zeppelin tracks of their whole catalog for that reason. John Paul Jones, for the first time, plays an 8-string and plays it with a pick. So you have, I think there's like 4 to 6 layered guitar tracks on this. Jimmy Page was going nuts in the studio on this one. There's a lot happening. John Paul Jones, he reacts to that and says, okay, listen, I need to be punchy. I need them to hear me. I can't be too low. So he plays with a pick, and he's hitting those mid ranges so that he pops in the mix. Kind of brilliant by him. I mean, it's why he's the unsung hero. Nobody knows that, which again, we try to get you to learn something new every day here at the Riff Circle. So we try to give you some cool facts. So John Paul Jones just doing God's work, and also trying to stay relevant in the mix because it's crowded. Again, Plant's going crazy, Bonham's going crazy, 8 million dubs, tracks of guitar. So honorable mention on Presence. T for One, I think one of probably a top 3 most underrated Led Zeppelin songs of all time. T for One is absolutely insane track. Jimmy Page does the most on this track. There's a few sections where he hits you with this wall of sound. It's coming at you. You think you have a breather, and then he gives you 2 beats and boom, it's back at you again. T for One, incredible track. Incredible. But for me, it's Achilles' Last Stand. I'll never forget when I first heard that song. I had my headphones on, and the track started, and I was like, whoa. Because you shoot out of a cannon right off the rip. And then it was Plant's vocals when he's going up and scaling up, and it's like unbelievable. I'll never forget the first time I heard that track. Getting towards the end here, folks, we got 2 left. Thanks for sticking with me. If you've enjoyed the video, consider dropping a like, and if you want to see me do Rush, Yes, The Doors, other ones, I got them in the queue to do. Subscribe so you don't miss them. Okay, moving on. In Through the Outdoor, 1979. For me, personally, so obviously the next 2 albums are not as strong, or at least I would make the case they're not as strong as the previous ones we've heard. Still phenomenal, still amazing albums, killer tracks. But for me, In the Evening, the opener on this one, a little bit similar to Presence in the sense that you're getting this big riff. It's the opener, and the riff just boom, it's just right at you, right up front. And I think, this late in the game with their career, when you start something like this, when you start a track like this, it's like, okay, they still have it. And it's just got all the elements to it that I like. Yeah, it rides a little close to a pop rock song, but again, the heaviness of Page's riff keeps it away from that. Honorable mention, you could go with a few of them on this one, but for me personally, I gave the nod to All of My Love. It's a classic. It's not the band's favorite. You gotta remember when they did In Through the Outdoor, Bonham and Page were a mess. They were a mess, drug wise. So it's essentially a Plant solo album with Jimmy just trying to keep it somewhat relevant on his end. So a lot of this is Page and Plant in the studio, I'm sorry, John Paul Jones, and obviously Page too, but a lot of it is Jones and Plant just kind of trying to lead the charge while these other two guys are hurting big time. So, it's got a little bit of a feel. That's where that pop thing comes into play. So this one that's why it feels like a lot like a Plant solo album, his first one, because it kind of was. He was leading the charge. But yeah, so In the Evening, killer track, All of My Love, awesome. Fool in the Rain is also really good. But that's what I got for that one. Last but not least, probably the least if I'm being honest. A lot of CODA, right, in 1982. A lot of CODA. This is just scattered outtakes, demos, stuff that never quite made it. So you got side 2 is a lot of the In Through the Outdoor sessions. I think it's all of the, except for Bonzo's Montreux. But Ozone Baby, Darlene, and Wearing and Tearing, those are all outtakes, and they're from the In Through the Outdoor sessions. So stuff that wasn't quite there to make the cut. And then side 1 is just a couple of tracks from the different albums that just make the cut. But for me, I'm going to cheat on this one and use the deluxe album that came out because it's undisputed. If you count the deluxe, it's Hey, Hey, What Can I Do? That's one of the best Led Zeppelin songs. It's super underrated. It's probably a top 10 Led Zeppelin song. It's not even close. It's just a phenomenal song. If you don't count the deluxe version, I'll go with the opener, We're Gonna Groove. It's a Benny King track. Benny King, of course, Stand By Me. Just a killer opener. It's a live track. They dubbed out the audience for that one, which I wish they would have just kept it in, but because why not? It's got that electric feel to it, and I bet the audience would have added some to it. But for me, Hey, Hey, What Can I Do with We're Gonna Groove. That's the list, folks. Thanks for sticking to the end. If you learned something or if you like this content, drop a like. We're a brand new channel. We're brand new. So every like counts. If we hit 15, I'll do Rush, Yes, The Doors, the same thing. I can also do worst track on albums if we're feeling frisky. And put in the comments, what's your favorite song off each one of these albums? I mean, it's so you could choose a million of these things, but make your case. If you don't think it's Stairway to Heaven, I want to hear it. Make your case. If I missed something, let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing. The Riff Circle, we're trying to be a community of folks who love to talk and learn about music all the time. This is our style, kind of like classic rock is the main style of it. And but we touch everything here. All right, folks, again, thanks for sticking with me and be well. Catch you on the next one. Take care.